Menger. I'm an education consultant. I am with FranConnect. I've been with FranConnect for just a little bit over a month now, but I've been in software training for about 3.5 to 4 years. My background before that was about 10 years in teaching, so I left that because honestly there was just not enough money in it. Now I get to do what I love to do, which is teach you guys, as well as earn a little bit more money other than just teaching. So I'm really happy to be with you guys today. So as I said, the topic of today's class is reporting. Our lesson is going to look like this. We'll do a quick introduction to reporting. We'll then jump into some basic reporting, and that will very basic touch on, maybe 5 to 10 minutes at most. And then we'll take a good portion of the class in custom reports, and I'll show you how to build the two types of reports in FranConnect that we currently offer. And then we will get into the best practices of reporting. Now, as we go along, there may be some questions that you guys have, so please find the chat box and do me a favor, and if you have a question or you need me to unmute you, it is a very small class, and I was going to try and unmute all of you guys at the beginning there, but we were getting a lot of feedback, so I'm going to keep you on mute unless we decide that we can, you guys on your end want to put yourselves on mute. But either way, so far we're just going to keep you on mute, and then if you do have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box, and I can unmute you if it's a lengthier question as well. We also have the opportunity for parking lot items. What do I mean by that? I think I'm pretty smart at this reporting thing. That being said, I know that I don't know everything. And if there's a situation where you ask an absolutely brilliant question, then I'm going to throw it into a parking lot if I don't know the answer to it, and we're going to make sure you have the answer to said question. So we may use a parking lot, and if I say, hey, you know what, I'm going to put that in the parking lot, I will get back to you. I'll take down your name, your email address from our recording here, and I will make sure that I get that particular question answered for you. Now, as you can see, we also, as you know probably from previous trainings, every session that we do is recorded, as long as I remember to hit the recording button, which somebody has so kindly already done that for me, so thank you, whoever did that. And so we do record every single session, and by tomorrow, usually, well, probably tomorrow's Saturday, probably by Monday you will have a recording or an email that looks similar to the one on your screen here that says, hey, we hope you enjoyed the event. Usually a link here that says review recording, and then you will be asked to register for the recording. It looks like as if you're registering for another course. You are not. Please don't think that that's the case. But when you do go to this particular site where you click on the view recording, it will kind of look like you're registering for another class. Once you register, quote unquote register, you will be given the option to view the recording here. Now, we did have about 11 people scheduled for this particular training, so one of them dropped off, but I have given you guys the option to follow along if you choose to. You may use our training domain. It's the website address is here, https://franconnecttraining.franconnect.net/Orion. I have also conveniently put that into your chat box, and you can just simply click on that link. So if you would like to follow along with us, use that link or simply type this into your browser window. I have also given each one of you guys a student link here with a username and a password so that you are capable of logging into the training domain. Now, if you want to do this from your live domain, that's fine, but realize that, as you know, you have full capability in your forms to really name fields whatever you want. So if you're looking for a field while I'm doing our demo reports and you're like, Frank, it's not the same field. I tried to pick some very generic fields that I thought everybody might have, but you know, and I'm also doing reports within Info Manager. So if you don't have Info Manager, this may not work for you. So I do suggest that you go ahead and log into our FranConnect training domain here using the particular login that we've given you here. Okay, so if you would like to log in, go ahead and do so. And if you would do me a favor, and John and Kelly, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand when you are ready to move on, I will go ahead and move on. Thank you, John. And Kelly has responded, so we're ready to move on. Before we go ahead and get into anything further, any questions that you guys might have, either type them into the chat box, or if you let me know, I can unmute you, and I'd be happy to let you ask any questions before we jump into the lesson. All right, I'm going to go silence is golden on that. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. Thank you, guys. We'll go ahead and get started now. I'm going to pull over my screen here so that we can get started. And pull up. There we go. So, reporting in FranConnect. We have lots of different options. A lot of people think of reporting as, well, I'm going to go to the reporting tab and I'm going to click this report and it's going to be run, or I'm going to do a custom report. But reporting really is just extracting data out of the system. So there are lots of different options as it pertains to extracting data out of the system. Okay, we can go to something as simple as going into your directory here and using the search features, like searching through here and using our search features. Or in our in our lists, we have the option to really expand these search features. Well, let's go into Info Manager. Excuse me. And let's go into a franchisee list real quick. And notice that, of course, we can really do an expanded search here. We can show filters within here, and lots of different filters that we can do. We can also save the filters that we want to use. So I know that a lot of people don't think about reporting as using our list features and using the search capabilities as a reporting feature, but it really does. It allows you to get the information that you need. So I always like to start with like the most basic piece of reporting and then kind of deeper. Okay. So the first and most basic way that you can extract data is to simply use our list views. Okay. Expand those search boxes and allow for different filters. Okay. And then use the option to save view. So if you are a person that always goes to a specific list view and you always have the owner name being X, the area or region being Y, make sure that you save that as your particular view so you don't have to always make those selections within the search view. The next step, of course, would be using the actual generalized reporting features that we have available in almost every single module that FranConnect offers. You notice that in Info Manager, in Sales, we have a Reports tab here, or a page here. In Opener, we have a Reports page. Every single one of our modules, except for the Hub, really has a Reports feature. Now, even within the Hub, though, we have some wonderful extra reporting features as well. Now, using the Reports tab, a lot of people and a lot of feedback that I've been getting from people is, okay, well, these reports, they're nice to use, but they don't really get what we actually need. Okay, so that's kind of where you go into building your own custom reports. Okay, and that's what we're main focus of today. One other place that I've noticed that has some really great features of reporting in our system is in the admin area under the access control. If you're an admin person and you are looking to see how many people have logged in, user account summary, any exported logs, the FIQ messenger, if any of these things are if you're an admin person, the Access Control Center also has a really nice section that allows you to report on. Those are really the most basic pieces of our software as far as it pertains to running reports. Now, when I do run reports, I'm going to go into Info Manager here, and I'm going to run just one of the basic reports that we have available to us. We have some options. I'm just going to run the Franchise to Owner report. Notice that at the top, of course, it extracts data for us based on what we put in our report. We also have filters at the top that we can use. We can unselect all. We can select various franchise IDs. We can select by area, region, country, state, and brand. Now notice, of course, also that when you run various other reports, these particular filters change. Why? Because that's when we were given instructions as to how to build these particular reports. Know that people had asked, hey, we want to filter like this, like this, like this, like this, and like this. Okay, so these filters are there for you to use. The other option that's really nice is, other than just printing this particular report just after we filtered it, we also have the option to take and move this to export it to Excel. which of course, if you're familiar with Excel, you can take this particular report, open it in Excel, and then do quite a bit of fun stuff within Excel that allows for further reporting. You can continue to further filter this report. You can do quite a few things if you're uh, Excel savvy. Okay, so lots of fun features in just the basic reporting within FranConnect. Before we dive into what I would like to do, which is the main custom build reports, which I'm sure most of you guys are interested in, do you guys have any further questions on just the basic reporting features? Again, list view, the basic reports, and then also the being able to export into Excel. Any questions on those three options? All right, I'm not seeing any questions in the question box, so you guys are probably all experienced users, and you're like, yes, let's jump into the custom stuff, Frank. This stuff is boring. I already know how to do all this. So we're going to go ahead and go into Info Manager, and this is where you can kind of play along. What we've decided at this stage of the game is we go into Info Manager, and we go into Reports, and we say, you know what? I love all these beautiful reports that you built for me, FranConnect. All of these are fantastic reports, but I really want to build something that is custom. I've got a C-level staff that's coming to me and says, I want X, Y, or Z, and I need to try and be able to build that. We're going to go ahead and walk you through two different types of reports, the two different types of reports that we have available to us, and give you a scenario as to a report that a C-level staff might ask for you to have, and then we're going to show you how to build those particular reports using the custom or the create new report option here. So of course what I'm talking about is this tab right here called create new report. This is really going to be used for a little bit more of an advanced reporting type tool here. All of these are pre-built. Plug and play, go, you got the filters already there. But when you start to really become savvy as a report artist, if you will, you realize, you know what? I need to start building my own custom reports, as probably you both are on the call. So the way that we start to build our custom report is simply to click on the Create New Report. Now from here, you're going to have the module to select. Now I'm in Information Manager, so the module that I have the option to select are really pertinent to the modules or the pages where the data resides. So in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as the default active, terminated, corporate locations, and in development franchisees information. What that's saying is that I'm going to go ahead and take everything on this tab, this tab, this tab, and this tab. Okay, so every piece of information in the situation, in this database right now, I'm going to extract from every single one of these pieces. Okay. Could I filter by just regional, multi-unit, entity? Absolutely. But right now, I'm going to take from all four of these particular pages because that's where the majority of the information, honestly, is within our system. Now, before I even get into building this particular report, you probably want to know, what am I trying to build? Okay, so here's the scenario I'm going to lay down for you. And this, you may have had something similar like this. Some C-level staff or somebody else has come to you and said, you know what, Frank, or could you please build me a report that gives you all the complaints that we've received with all the necessary information you need that we need to be able to resolve the issues that these complaints are coming in. Okay. Also, you know what, Frank, I really need to be able to filter this report by the city as well as by franchisee type. Okay. Now, obviously, your scenarios are going to be different than mine, but I was just making something up, and I said, hey, this could be might be a useful report. All right. So what we're going to do in that scenario, I am wanting kind of a list format of each one of my different complaints, and I want to be able to organize them in a way that's going to help me to actually resolve this particular issue. If we're going to do some sort of a list or like an Excel type spreadsheet, the type of report that you're going to develop is your tabular report. As you can see from the description, it allows you to view a report which contains only the values selected fields which match a specific criteria. It's going to generate in a very familiar Excel spreadsheet type format, similar to the way that we saw developed when we ran the pre-built reports. Okay. Now, when we get into an aggregation report, which we'll do next, really what you're trying to do is create aggregated data and put it into a chart. Brand Connect also offers a aggregation report type scenario. Really what you're looking to do there is to take aggregated data or sum up data, average data, counted data, and put it into a chart so that it's graphically displayed for your end users so that they might be able to look at that data and actually glean a high level overview of what's going on. So really the differences between the two, tabular report really is granular data most of the time. Okay, now can you get big high level stuff too from it? Yeah, but unless you're a reporting specialist, like I'm sure you two are, the aggregation report is really going to be like for your higher level staff. They want to see the overall picture of things. Whereas maybe your on the ground salespeople or complaint resolving people might need to know more of a tabular, more of a granular level. So we're going to start with that tabular report because we're going to see that somebody, we're going to say that somebody comes into our office and says, hey, I need a report that gives me all the complaints that have, and all the information that I need as a complaint specialist to go and resolve them. Okay, so we're going to go with the tabular report for our first report. And then we'll get into the aggregation report. Fair enough? Any questions about the difference between tabular report and aggregation report before we move on? Okie dokie. Everybody's good to go. Thank you guys. Really appreciate your guys' feedback. All right, we're going to start, like I said, with tabular report. So I'm going to move into, and remember the report we're building, complaints, so that we have all the information that we need to actually resolve them as a complaint specialist. We're going to go to our next because we've selected that. Now there are 4 steps to building a custom tabular report. You define the report attributes, you define the report filters, pull in the fields that you want to see, and then save the report. So defining the report attributes is fairly simple. You're going to name the report. Now, as we're going to talk about in our best practices a little bit, your naming convention is very important. I always like to start off with my initials at the beginning because when I am looking through that ridiculously long list of wonderful reports that I built, I like to be able to go to the FLM section, which is my first, middle, and last initials, and boom, those are all the reports that Frank Lloyd Menger has built. Okay, so we're going to call this FLM and then complaint details. Why? Because that's pretty much what I figured. And then, of course, you have the option as far as accessibility to make it public, private, or groups. If you select groups, then, of course, you need to select which roles are going to have access to this particular report. Now, our recommendation, of course, is that all reports remain public, but security on your end is really your business. So public means everybody can access it. Private, you're the only one that can access it. Groups, these specific roles, boop, 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 whatever we select, can access this particular report. So we're going to make this one public. Why? Because I want everybody to be able to see this report. And then the description really just takes this report name and expands upon that description. So we'll put down something like this report gives a list of all complaints in the system and details to help you resolve them. Something similar to that. Okay, so now I put in my report name, which is required, notice by the red star, and then I put in a description, which is not necessarily required, and I want this particular report to be public. I'm then going to click on the next button so that I can move into define my report attributes. I'm sorry, define my report filters. So next, remember at the beginning we had said that in the request they had said, I want to be able to filter this particular report. So my end user has come to me, the complaint specialist has come to me and says, Frank, I need to be able to filter this report by city and franchisee type. So how do we do that? That's where the field names come into play. And as we know, all of your guys' field names may be just a tad bit different. In this scenario, what I'm going to do, and this is very important, knowing your field names, as we'll find out in best practices here, is key to building an appropriate report. Okay, we'll talk about that later when we get into practices, best practices. Where we're going to go down to is I want to go into store info. Lots of data in the info manager here. I don't want to go too fast here. Come on. I passed it already? Might have passed it. Let's see here. Well, let's start typing. There's store. There it is. I went too fast. So I'm going to be in the store info section here. And as I know from being in my system, I know that the store info page or the store info form is where the data I need to be able to pull is. So in order to filter by the store info, by the city, as I was requested, I'm going to pull in for my filter the store info city and push that and then go to go. Notice that the store info city pulls here. And I want the end user to be able to type which city they want to filter the report by. So I put in an equals. Notice that these operands are very important as to how it's going to filter the report. Equals means direct one-to-one relationship. Contains means something similar to this. Starts with means what it sounds like. Ends with, same thing. Does not equal is like a negative. Is empty. So if the city is empty, then of course we would use is empty. Or if is not empty means there's got to be some information in that particular field. So we're going to, as this is an end user filter, we're going to put equals to and then allow the end user to filter by that. Remember also, though, we added franchisee type. We wanted to make sure that the end user was able to filter also by franchisee type. That is also found. I passed it again, I think. Be nice if these were, there it is, in alpha order. But they're not, so there you go. So I'm going to add that filter as well. Now I'm going to add one more filter in there because when I'm building this particular report, I want to also make sure that I'm filtering out or blank fields. So in this scenario, I also want to make sure that I only get the information, the stores in my particular report that actually have a customer complaint. Otherwise, it gives you every single store, and I don't want that. I only want to know what the stores are that have a particular complaint in them. So the way that I decided to do that, and you could do this on your own, is I went into the customer complaint section. And I said data feedback. And remember we talked about that one particular filter where is not empty. So what that's going to do is it's going to automatically, this is what we call a hard-coded filter. It's going to say, I want any of stores that have a customer complaint where the data feedback is not empty. And that is usually quite a required field for our customer complaints that come in. Okay, so now I've got all of my particular filters, and I'm ready to move on to pull in my fields that I think I might need for this particular report. So I hit on the next button, and I'm in the reports field to be displayed. Now, what are some of the information that you need? Well, of course, you're probably going to want to know some of the customer complaint details. So let's go into our customer complaint section. Too far. And of course, I want to know, probably the date of the incident, the date of feedback, date of incident. Maybe I want to know what the complaint type is. Maybe I want to know who the complaint person was, right? Or what the actual complaint was. And then maybe just a quick, maybe I want the complaint name, who actually put in that particular complaint. Oops. And then probably maybe I want the summary of the incident as well. So that's all about the information about the complaint, right? Now, the other piece that I'm going to do is I want to make sure that this particular report is also in order of the most recent, all right? So if I did ascending by date of feedback, I'm going to get the oldest to newest. But in this scenario, I'm going to do a reports ordered by descending so that it's going to order my complaints in newest to oldest, all right? But we're not quite done yet, because what I'd also like to know, I'd also like my report to show each one of my stores that that report came from. So I'm going to put in some information for the end user to say, oh, well, this store is the one that had these particular complaints from them. So the way that I do that is I simply go to my store info, which is above there, and I start to pull in some store information. Okay, so maybe some stuff that you might need to know. I don't know, office name might be good, so that you can say which office this complaint came from or came to. Okay, maybe you want to know what the office type was. How are you going to get a hold of this office to make sure that you get this to be resolved? Maybe you want to know something like, I don't know, the phone number, the extension, the mobile of the particular office. So maybe you would want to do the phone, the center phone extension. Maybe there's a mobile that's associated with this particular store. You might want to put that in. Or maybe you're just going to go after and make sure that you email them, and you might want the email address as well. Notice I'm continuing to add to my list here. So you just continue to put in information that you might want. I don't know, maybe the store contact person. You want to know who the contact title is, first name, last name, contact phone number. We'll just continue to add some fields here to kind of make this report be more applicable to the end user here. And we'll go ahead and put in phone number, phone extension of the contact. So now I have just about every single piece of information that I can think of that that end user actually wants. Okay. And now we're ready to rock and roll. Okay. What I've got basically is in my report filters, I put in the three filters that I wanted. I put in the fields that I want to display. I have I've ordered the reports in descending order by date of feedback so that I get my most current complaints at the top. Now we go ahead and click on the next button so that we can finalize the report. Notice, of course, it gives us our report details, and saving then allows us to go ahead and save the report and see what we've done. In this particular report, notice, of course, we've got each one of these shops. The office name here is Karen's Flower Shop. This one's Tyson's Corner. And for each one of these particular offices, we've got the complaints. Now, of course, we know in our system that complaints can be positive or negative. In this scenario, look, Karen's Flower Shop, they're doing good. Maybe you want to call this, the end user might want to call this person up and say, hey, Karen's, you're doing a great job. Okay. Going down here to Tyson's Corner, though, most negative, negative, negative. Not doing so well, buddy. Might want to call up Tyson's Corner. And if you did, notice, of course, you have the phone number, the email address of the particular center. You also have the contact first name, last name, phone number, if there was an extension, and then the mobile number if you have recorded said information. This report, of course, would be very usable for the end user. Now, of course, we also notice that the option to filter. So the end user could filter by city, like he or she asked for. They could also filter by what kind of franchisee type they were looking for. Active franchisees, corporate locations, and development. I don't think they'd probably be searching for terminated franchises, but maybe they would. Okay. And then, of course, they've got the hard-coded one here that we would hope they would just leave that one alone. Okay. Questions on how to build a tabular report. All right, I've got a hand raise. Let's see who was raising their hand real quick. Nope, nope, no hand raise. Went away. I have comments, so I'm going to unmute Kelly because Kelly is awesome, and Kelly wants to give us some comments today. Go ahead, Kelly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
The one thing that I watch out for is also labels. So, for example, there's a first name in several tabs. It's in the agreement tab, the customer complaints tab, marketing tab, employees and owners. They all have a first name field. And so when I'm building a report, I'm also making sure that the labels correspond to what it is I'm searching for. So I'll have employees' first name. You have some of them actually put it in by default. Not all of them do. Same with address. Am I looking at the center info's address or the complainant's address? So just watch out for how you label the fields. It makes it easier to read your report.
Yep, you got it. That's actually going to be in my best practices because we talked about that last week, Kelly. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the wonderful best practices is to make sure that you know which first name, which last name, which status that you're pulling from. Because if you don't know which one of those fields you're pulling, you can get some wonderful data, huh, Kelly?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll put you back on mute. Thanks so much for your input. Anybody else that would like to input or has questions on this particular report that we built, the tabular report? All right, not seeing anything. We're going to go ahead and move now into an aggregation report. All right, and we're going to jump into this particular report. We're going to jump back into when we get into best practices, but we're also going to go ahead and now jump into our our aggregation report. So we built a tabular report, which really was useful for the end user on the ground complaint specialist that really at your corporate organization that says, hey, I handle all the complaints. I need to know who's getting complaints, whether they be positive or negative, and how I can contact that particular store to actually get that data. Now, let's talk about a little bit different a scenario. Okay, another scenario, let's say that a C-level staff comes to you and says, I want you to build me a chart that shows me the breakdown of complaint types that we've received and be able to filter that by city and franchisee type. So this person is obviously looking at the bigger picture. He or she doesn't necessarily need to see the individual complaints. He or she just really wants to look at a chart, at a graphical representation of our complaints as a corporate organization and see where are we getting complaints. Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they unknown? What kind of complaints are we getting as a corporate? So as a corporation. The way that you're going to do that is by building a aggregation report. So we're going to build a very similar report. Obviously, we're going to be pulling in fewer fields because as a higher level person, you don't really care about the granular details for the most part. What you care about is how are we doing as an organization in general. So this report will be fewer filters, fewer fields that we're pulling in, but really gives that overall data that a C-level staff might need to see. So we're going to build an aggregation report. We're going to use the exact same data that we used for our tabular report. The difference is that we're going to be showing high-level data, sum data, average data, count data, so on and so forth. Okay. Now there are 5 sections of a custom aggregation report. The 5 sections define report attributes. That's similar. Report filters, similar. Choose fields to group by is a little different. Display summaries is a little different. And save report is the same. So these 3 and 4 are really, we're going to start to kind of differentiate a little bit. Now notice right off the bat when we start defining report attributes, we have some different stuff going on here. Report name, we can of course still name our reports. This one I'm going to call complaint types by city and franchisee type, something like that. Where again, accessibility public. I want to build a pie chart for my C-level staff so that he or she can really see the percentage of a whole as to where we're getting our complaints from. We have 2D, 3D option. Notice that we could be building several different kinds of actual charts here. I just chose pie because I like pie. It makes me think of lunch, and that's about what time it is for me. So there you go. The description, of course, this report gives us a graphical display of complaint types that can be filtered by the end user by city and franchisee type. Here. Okay. Oh, learn to spell, Frank. All right, now that my fat fingers have been corrected here, we then, of course, and we've defined our report attributes, we're going to go ahead and move into defining the report filter. So how do we want to filter this? Now, this is very, very similar as well as our first report. So what did the end user want to be able to filter it by? We wanted to be able to filter by store info city, store info franchisee type. So we simply go, just like we did before, we go into our store info section, we pull the city in, we pull the franchisee type in. Oops. Now, of course, in this scenario, again, I'm going to make this an equals to, and then the franchisee type, I want them to be able to select which franchisee type at the end. So I'll say in, and then allow them to be able to select the franchisee types that they want. Okay. Now, we're ready to move into 3 and 4 here. 3 and 4 are just a little bit different, so we'll take a couple of seconds to go over those. Fields to group by. So how do we want to group this particular report? Okay. Well, what in our pie chart, what were the sections that we wanted each one of the slices of the pie to be? Complaint type. So we are going to scroll down to complaint type. Remember, our C-level staff had asked for us to pull together a report with the, whoops, that was good. I go too fast, I think. Oh, there's store info. Complaint type. Where are we at, guys? Did I miss it again? There we go. Complaint type. The headers are alphabetical. Thank you, Kelly. Yep, it's kind of hard for me sometimes to get through these, so we'll do complaint type. And we want to just go ahead and leave it alone as ascending. Okay, we'll leave that alone. We're not going to customize it any further than that. So what we're saying basically is, in this particular scenario, I want to build a pie chart that has a complaint type as my main aggregate field. Okay. So next, of course, it's going to say, how do you want to summarize this particular data? All right. Well, what are we summarizing? We want to know how many, or the count of complaint types that have come in. So I simply do, I go down to my complaint, customer complaints, and I do a count and add that in. Okay, so basically what this report is saying is, I'm going to filter it by, allow the end user to filter by city and franchisee type. I'm going to, the field that we're going to group by is the complaint type. And the summary here, the summaries, I'm going to count each one of those complaints and give a value to the pie based on how many of each complaint is available in the system. To save the report, of course, we simply go to the next button here and we save the report. We check our report name, our description that we're happy with, and we click on save. Notice, of course, now instead of a granular report, we now have a beautiful report that has the option for us to take a look at each one of the complaints that the overall corporation has had. In this particular corporation, we've had 12 negative complaints, 1 informative, 2 positive, and 3 financial development. These are, of course, all of the all of the types of complaints that we have in our particular system. Okay, 5 unknown. Maybe they just didn't have when they were entering in the complaint, they weren't sure as to what category it would go into. Maybe they just left it blank. Okay, and a breakdown here. So again, very high level data with this particular report. Also, you have the option to print it out or export it and really play with it in Excel as well. and that is building a aggregation report for more of a high-level look at your data. Any questions on how you might use a aggregation report? Remember the difference: tabular, really granular data for the most part. You're looking at the really low, down and dirty details, whereas your aggregation report, really for C-level staff or people that are wanting higher level information, don't necessarily want to be able to look at the down and dirty details, but as an organization, how are we doing with these particular complaints? So any questions on those two different types of custom reports that we can build in the system? All right. Well, the last section here, not seeing any comments or questions. So the last section I wanted to talk about, we kind of really touched on quite a few of them. Kelly already hit up quite a few of them, but we're going to talk a little bit about best practices as it pertains to building these custom reports. All right. The best practices that we're going to start with is naming convention. Okay. Naming convention is lovely. Why? Well, because when I go to my reports tab here, and I'm looking for my particular report, they just stay in alpha order. And when you are an experienced custom report builder, you may have built hundreds of custom reports. How are you going to find those? Well, naming convention becomes very important because this list is in alpha order. Okay. In an ideal world, we would have some sort of folder system in this scenario, but in the current world is that we have this all in alpha order. So if you put your initials in front of every report you built, you'll be able to simply do a control F or find, and then type in your initials, and boom, you're to every single one of the FLM reports that you've ever built. Okay. The other piece that's really important when we talk about naming conventions is your fields. When we talk about fields, we're talking about your fields as it pertains to the forms in, so let's say I'm going to Info Manager and I go into my Manage Form Generator. When we talk about the fields, what we're talking about is that very granular level. So when we go into the customer complaints section, for instance, we need to know what these fields are named. As Kelly said, and any good reporter is going to say, you may have several first names in your system. It might be good as an admin person to go in and to each one on the back end here to the Manage Form Generator under Customer Complaints, and really if you're looking for first name of customer complaints, you might put complainant's first name or complainant's this, complainant's that, so that you when you're looking and building these reports, complainant name is very clear. Because if you just put first name under complaint details, that's going to be kind of a problem. Why? Because guess what? It's going to be really difficult for you to know which first name you're actually pulling from. So know which field you're actually trying to pull when you're doing these reports. Good example of that is, of course, status. A lot of times I'll go into my reports and I'll build a quick one real quick for you guys and show you one where I've gotten confused before. All right. So if I go to the fields, I'll just put in a test real quick, and next. Oops. All right. That one already exists. Gobbledygook here. And I'll put in just a quick filter here. So now we're looking at our fields again. So approved date. Approved date of what? The agreement? Let's see. What's another one that's always a little bit confusing? We said first name, last name. First name, last name of what? The agreement? Okay. Again, renaming these fields. Contact title. You've got several contact titles in the system. Renaming these fields on the back end, or making sure that you know which section you're in. The agreement section, first name. The agreement section, last name. Okay. Really is going to help you out here. Okay. City, country, state. All of these things are going to be universal fields for lots of different sections. So be very careful when you're pulling in fields to your report, whether they be for filters or for fields to display. You know what you're actually displaying. Okay, and that's what I think what Kelly was going after. So another beautiful thing that we talked about is putting in filters for the end user. Put in tons of filters. Allow them to really go nuts with that. So go nuts with the filters. Allow them to filter by anything and everything that you think that they might. Maybe the report comes in, or the report request comes in, and they say, you know what, I just need city and franchisee type. But you could think of 4 or 5 other things in your head that you'd be like, you know what, they might need blah. They might need the instead of the franchise, they want to be able to filter. Maybe they might need something like franchise ID. Maybe that would be a good filter. Maybe that'd be even easier for them to filter, so they can just boom, put in the franchisee and go. Maybe they may need to be able to filter by the region. Put in a lot of filters, and then instruct your end users, the people who are using the reports, that if they don't need that filter, just leave it blank. It's not going to do any harm to have those filters at the top and allow them to say, yeah, no, I don't need that filter this particular time. Okay. The other real big thing about filters is filters are using the AND operator. Okay, so when you have multiple filters, realize, so if I'm filtering by, let's say I'm going to go by store info, and I'm going to filter by city, and I'm going to filter by, let's say I want to also filter by, where is it? By zip code. Okay. What you're currently doing is filtering by, if you use both filters, it's store info city and store info zip or postal code. You're not filtering by the city or the zip code. And that's very important to make sure that you remember that there is no or option between these. Is city and zip code and the next filter and the next filter that you use, so on and so forth. So as you continue to use more and more filters and fill out more of these filters, realize you are further restricting the data results that comes out. So be very, very careful when you instruct your end users and tell them this is an and scenario. So if you don't necessarily want to continue to filter by that particular, just leave it blank. Don't continue to use that particular filter, or don't, when you're filtering your results, make sure that you don't necessarily use that particular filter. The last thing that I want to talk about as far as best practices really was a wonderful example in the report I built, which was the complaint details here. I'm going to go ahead and run that again. Okay. Merged versus unmerged, or without merged cells. Okay. When we merge records, what we're saying is we're going to merge all of Karen's Flower Shop records together, any complaint that they had together, and we're going to section it out by all Karen's Flower Shops, all of Tyson Corners, all of Bloons, all of Alpine, so on and so forth, all the way down, so that we get sections of each one of these stores, each one of these office names. Okay, now, maybe that's not a scenario that you want. Maybe you don't want to merge each one of these cells. By unmerging them or clicking without merge cells, what you're going to see is that it's going to now break it up by individual complaint. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Each one is going to have an individual record. And sometimes that's going to be useful for your end users to actually see the individual complaint types and have a record for each one of those particular individual complaint types, not grouped together or merging the fields together to allow for an individual Karen's Flower Shop. Okay, so this layout business really is helpful to have the with merge cells in some scenarios and without merge cells in some scenarios if you want individual records. Okay. Now, I notice I do have Kelly on the phone. Is there anything else that you might, I know Kelly and I had a conversation last week, or John, I believe it was John that was on the phone with us as well. If you guys have anything that you might want to add that you've used within the report building, I'd be happy to unmute you, and I'd be happy to let you contribute to the call. Just raise your hand or let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to let you chime in. All right, I'm not seeing anything. So we've got about 5 more minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and leave the line open for the next 5 minutes. If there are any specific questions that you might have, I would love to be able to answer those. John or Kelly, if you have any specific questions, just let me know. Raise your hand. Otherwise, guys, again, my name is Frank Menger. I really appreciate your guys' time today. Thank you for joining today. I hope you've learned something. I know that I every single time I teach a class, I learn something. So I appreciate your time. If you don't have any further questions, I will be sending this recording out to you very shortly here. And it looks like Kelly's got something to add. So I'll unmute you, Kelly. Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead, Kelly.
The one field that I include in all my reports is the franchise ID, because that's a hyperlink into the record itself. And so when I'm running reports, a lot of it is to do a cleanup exercise. And so if I see the report is missing data in a specific field, if you include the franchise ID, you can link right into the account, not specifically to the area where the report is pulling the data from, but into the store itself.
Wonderful tip. Let me show them what that looks like. Thank you, Kelly. So now, notice that we've got a hyperlink that, boom, takes us right into, from the report over to the record. That's a wonderful tip. Thank you, Kelly.
The other is, after building reports a couple of times, you learn which fields automatically allow you to sort, which headers. So franchise ID automatically, usually I think contact first and last are automatically sortable columns. So I won't set those to sort, and I'll use. I found that the more you select to allow you to sort, sometimes the slower the report can be if you're pulling on a lot of data. So I'll limit what it is I want to sort by, and specifically not set ones that are already doing it, like franchise ID. The other tip I had is going back to the labels. If you modify this report, I'll show you what I was referring to.
Sure.
So go next. And next. And here, customize label. So, for example, I'm not going to go in and rename the address field in all the tabs to, complainant address, complainant state, complainant city. What I'll do is in this report here, I'll put whichever tab or I'll identify the field in the label here.
Okay, so just by renaming the field here, instead of contact first name, you may just want to put something that was more applicable to the end user.
Correct, or like if it doesn't pull in employee first name, and I'm running a report that includes both employees and owners and the primary contact, I'll make sure each of those first name fields labels what data set it's pulling from. So that was the labels I was referring to.
Oh, great.
I do like in the new version, they allow you to actually move the fields around for both the filter and the display. That's recent to Sky. So you can exactly, you can move them around. The other thing I had is I always make sure my filter includes one of the required fields, and I'll make sure that that field is not empty. So going back to your filter of the complainant or the complaint, the dates might not always be required, and thus might not always have data. So when you're looking at the tab, or when you're looking to see what data you want to pull, you want to be familiar with the page on where the data is found, and make sure you're pulling a required field to make sure you're capturing all of the data. So, because a lot of that is human error, and the list there doesn't tell you what's required. You really have to know the page or go back to the page to know what the end user has to actually enter. And then going back to when you're creating the report, you can either choose make it public or private or groups. The groups are by role name. Not everyone will be familiar with what that role, who that role pertains to, unless you've named your roles, accounting, marketing, and so forth. So yeah, keep them public unless you're making something that's only for the managers, that kind of thing. But just be aware that if the person can see the report, then they're able to modify it, typically unless the permissions are set differently. And so our rule of thumb for the entire system is if it's not yours, then don't change it. You can use other people's reports, but that's something that they built, so therefore keep it with the way they need it. And then something I think is recent, if it's not recent, it's something I've just found, is when you've built the report and say you're pulling from all of your franchises, and so you have 1,000 lines, there is a view per page at the top of the screen. So if you want to go ahead and hit next and run this report, or go to a report, I found that to be very helpful when I'm looking at 1,000 records. So at the top left of the top right corner, there's a keep going up. Go up. Nope, go up. There you go. So that comes in really handy for me.
Thank you, Kelly. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I know that we kept you just a couple extra minutes longer than we said we would, but I really appreciate you guys' time. Kelly, thank you so much for your time last week as well as your comments today. I really appreciate it. Again, guys, we'll send you a recording of this particular session with all of the comments that Kelly made, because she made some wonderful comments there as well as the ones that we went over. We thank you so much, and we will see you hopefully next time on the next Ask the Experts. Have a wonderful day.